All right, everyone, welcome to this week's The Future of the Cosmos Hub call. This week we'll be talking about Cosmos Hub governance, more in the context of uh, the Cosmos Hub being used as a funding mechanism, how it should be funded, what it should fund, what the process looks like, and just generally things like that. So today I'm joined by Sunny and Ethan and Gavin and Serge from Cyber, who's running into some technical difficulties. He'll be here shortly. So yeah, do you guys want to give a brief introduction in case some people who are viewing, may not be as familiar?
I go in order. Sunny?
Sunny, you want to go? Yeah.
Sure. Hey guys, my name is Sunny. I'm one of the co-founders of Sika. Previously worked at Tendermint. Did a lot of development for the Cosmos SDK and Cosmos Hub. And currently, Sika is, we're starting to do a lot more development for the Cosmos SDK. And so very interested in figuring out this question of how to get funding for this sort of public goods development, especially as on a call, let's go on. We can get into this later. Yeah, go ahead, Gavin. You go ahead.
Hey, yeah. I'm Gavin Birch. I'm a protocol analyst at Figment, and we used to be Figment Networks. We're now we're just Figment. I've got, I don't know if you can see this. I've got my
nice.
Oops, wrong side, Cosmos shirt. I'm on the Cosmos side. I'm really interested in governance. In January, we launched a proposal for some work for the Cosmos Hub. Did some documentation and best practices around parameter changes and community spends. And prior to that, we did a lot of work for the kind of paving the way for protocol upgrades using signaling proposals. And since then, I've scaled down some of the work that I've done in the Cosmos governance working group, but I'm looking to pick that up again. So I'm excited to be here and to talk about
this. Hi, I'm Ethan. Also grabbing the Cosmos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to work back 2017 for AIB and spun off to build other apps on top of Cosmos SDK. Most recently, I'm working with Confio for a while, and most recently, Confio has been doing CosmWasm, which you've probably heard of. So we are since about September, been working in CosmWasm for a team up. We're also working in CosmJS, which is now moved to Cosmos repo. It's an ICF funded project, so it's a JS library, and we're also working on launching a chain called Tardigrade. T-Grade should be early next year. And let's see, I think also have a few more projects there. Also find proof of engagement, consensus mechanism, lots of stuff. Please check us out, Confio.tech. And otherwise, we're here because Confio got a big grant from the hub. And I think it's probably the first clear funding mechanism. It's not ICF or AIB, but really the hub itself paid. And that was for adding functionality into CosmWasm to enable it to go in the hub, if so desired. So we completed that funding, and we've done that. I explained my experience with that.
it. It looks like Serge is here too. Can you hear us, Serge?
Yeah, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, I have some total electronical collapse a second before it started. Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Serge. I guess today I represent Cyber because I have a few projects which have to do with Cosmos. So one is I work for a project called Cyber. I take care of the ecosystem. We are building a consensus computer on top of Cosmos SDK. And the other one is Citizen Cosmos, which is a podcast where I'm a co-host and a validator on the Cosmos Hub. So why am I here today? Probably because we got rejected with Cyber with the proposal we did, because nobody likes us. No, I'm joking. Well, I guess we were the first project after Ethan. We were kind of simultaneously where we offered the hub to invest into a project. not going to the SCF or not going the usual way, but going towards the hub and doing sort of like decentralized VC, trying the decentralized VC mechanism. It didn't work out. I guess we will talk about today why it didn't work out, but that's why we're here. I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So I guess just to kind of dive in, I think so the Cosmos Hub is simple, to say the least. I guess right now it acts as a host for the Atom, which is the staking token and an asset. It allows you to stake it. And I think one other novel feature that exists right now in the pre-IBC world is governance, right? So I think governance is obviously a core mechanism of the Cosmos Hub. I guess Gavin, do you want to kind of briefly mention about your work with kind of formalizing some of that process early on and how that kind of led to the funding mechanism later down the road?
Yeah, sure, Josh. So initially, the Cosmos Hub launched with just the ability, in terms of governance functionality, just the ability to launch signaling proposals, which meant that there wasn't anything binding on chain. So you would make a deposit, and then if the deposit was big enough, others can contribute to the deposit as well. And if once the deposit gets to the minimum, which I think is 512 atoms, then it goes into the voting phase, and the voting period lasts for 2 weeks. And then if the proposal passes, then at that point, there's kind of this expectation that whatever was contained in the proposal, like if it was an actionable, that at that time, for the most part, AIB was taking care of everything, that they would kind of carry out whatever the wishes of that were indicated by the preference indicated by the Atom stakers. And then when the Cosmos Hub 3 chain launched, that enabled parameter changes as well as funding, the ability to direct funding from the community pool. The community pool takes 2% of all transaction fees and block rewards, and they just accumulate, and you can use the proposal to automatically direct those funds to any one single arbitrary account. And with parameter change proposals, before we had to relaunch the hub anytime we wanted to change anything in the coding. Like, for example, the reason we went from Cosmos Hub 1 to Cosmos Hub 2 is because in order to enable Atom transfers, that parameter needed to be changed, and there was no way to do that on chain. So the entire chain needed to be relaunched to do that. Now we have the ability to do that on chain simply with a proposal. And it can change many other parameters as well, like economic parameters, like new issuance, and like slashing penalties and conditions around slashing. So we had this technical capability to do this. We have the mechanism for it, but we didn't really have any guides or any sort of norms or best practices for how to use this. So I saw a need there and developed some documentation and best practices based on some of the work that we had done, because we had undertaken a lot of the work to in Cosmos Hub governance to use this for protocol upgrades, to use the signaling proposal for protocol upgrades, and some of the things that we learned along the way, we're able to as in consultation with many other stakeholders, we're able to kind of codify that a little bit in these norms and best practices. And so that's published on GitHub, and now I'm in the process of actually Bucky's been doing it as well, migrating that to a more user-friendly website. So there's if you're looking for information about how to launch a proposal, there's actually a community member right now who's looking to launch 2 parameter change proposals, and I know there are others that have been considering launching a community fund community spend proposal. There's lots of information there about how to go about that, from right at the beginning, assuming nothing, to right at the end when you launch it on chain. yeah, and I'm always looking for feedback for how to improve that. We'll be working on that over the next 3 months. Oh, and the other big one is the Cosmos Governance Working Group, which is a working group that's dedicated to taking that, like, using that documentation and those best practices as a way to educate and advise. And we host conversations. For a while, we were doing monthly calls and also monthly topic calls to host conversations about some of the governance activity that's happening on the hub or proposed governance activity. And it is a chance for people to get together, stakeholders, especially if people are paying attention to a lot of different networks. It's a good, like, discrete event for people to get together and to learn about what's going on and to talk about what's going on, what has happened, where we're at, and where we're going.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I guess. So do you have anything to add to that? I guess in terms of the design mechanism early on. Just
No, I mean, I think that I think there's a lot of, like, interesting things to be added to the design of the governance mechanism, if that's what you want me to talk about. But I think Gavin did a good job covering sort of.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's most unclear maybe is sort of like chained proposals, like proposals that have dependencies on other proposals, and this I think has just been like this like weird thing that has happened throughout the history of the hub, where, like, this proposal can only be valid if it's after this proposal, kind of thing. And, like, there's a bug in the first in the way the first proposal was written, and it's like, does this mean you have to throw out this new proposal? Or just like the idea of how do you, like, upgrade issues with proposals. I think, like, all of this kind of stuff is things that need to be sort of figured out.
Yeah, I only want to add one thing. Be very, very, very careful with parameter change upgrade proposals. I've broken networks like them. Testnets. We've accidentally broken testnets with them. But yeah.
That's really good to know. If you come across ways that parameter changes can break the network, I've documented.
Do not increase the block window. No extreme increase of block window for validator jailing.
Okay.
So if you increase it, like, from 100 to, like, 10,000, you're probably gonna break a network.
What You know what the cause is?
Yeah, because they had signed, all the best validators had signed exactly 100 blocks in the last window, and suddenly the window becomes 10,000, and they've all signed 1%, and they're all jailed.
I see.
And the whole network, everybody's jailed. There's no validator. They're invalid. Can't proceed. That happened a while ago. I don't know, April or something, or some testnet regen we were running, playing with it. But yeah, just saying it's careful. I don't think they fixed it. So generally, be very careful what you're doing, because it's just changing a number and it's not having. There's no intelligence of the consequences of those numbers. So I think the parameters are actually very dangerous. These parameter change upgrades. It's very powerful because you can change anything, but assume that there's no effect on state, right? Some things need to change slowly or be adjusted, right? Like if I'm raising a window, it needs to be slow and not radical. So I think they're a very interesting feature, but a very dangerous feature. I mean, they have to be approved by everyone, so there'll be reviews on them. So generally, you can test those beforehand on a mainnet like Cosmos Hub, but on testnet, you just play with them and break things. So
yeah, actually, that calls to mind a couple of things. We have identified at least one other breaking change from a parameter update. I know there are more. So I've documented the one, and if anybody else is listening and paying attention, and you've been playing around on testnets and you've found other parameter changes that break the network, like, contact me so that we can get them documented. And then the other thing is that in the documentation, you'll note that I recommend trying this first on the testnet. If you do any parameter changes, that should be first tried. We're usually running a Gaia testnet, so let's do it there first and see what happens, and then before we do it on the mainnet. And there are instructions for that as well. So if you've never launched a proposal on the testnet, it might be a little bit. There might be some barriers. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can slide kind of right into the funding aspect of it. I think we can kind of start off with Ethan, because you're one of the funding recipients. I love that, like, you guys got started off in like the hackathon in Berlin, and then eventually kind of, iterated and scaled, and then, eventually you guys were funded by the hub, brought out an awesome product that is being used by multiple networks within the Cosmos ecosystem, and now you guys are launching a zone. So I feel like that's a very awesome first example of a hub funded, governance funded project or a tool, I guess. Do you kind of want to go through that process of how that was like, why you guys decided to do that, and what you felt like could be improved?
Cool. You definitely. So first of all, thank you very much for the hub. Everyone who voted, it was very helpful. So yeah, it came up a hackathon. I'll give you a brief history where why we ended up even going to the hub for money. It came up a hackathon. So we had this cool idea. So we got, I think, like 60K to build it. And so that went for a while, but not forever. So, with that, we had brought out, I think our 0.6 version, something like that, into February of 2020. And so, we got it production. It had no obvious flaws. The gas limits were there. Stuff was working. We had a compiling step. We had reproducible builds. We had a lot of the, base documentation tutorials. We had the basics of it there. And at that point, I wanted to go further. Obviously, I love the thing. I got something that's usable, but that's not in use yet, and definitely needed more stuff on it. So I decided to focus 100% on this in January, and not have any other income sources, which was a leap of faith. And so quickly, we need more money. So, we're going. So I started conversations actually early February with ICF, which were generally saying, we like what you're doing. You're doing awesome work here. We think it's very valuable in general. We'll figure out how to get funded. And that's a process that's relatively slow. The ICF has their own grant rounds, or once per quarter. It's fine, but it's a relatively slow process. So when you're kind of starting up, it's definitely can be a little too slow. And so we were looking for other ways of getting funded. We were looking for projects that are building on us. There are about 4 projects that approach that want to build on us, and ask them for contracting. We can do features for hire. Got one contract with Terra, a relatively small one, but a decent one, to go for a bit. And we're looking for others. And at that point, someone recommended to look at the hub. The hub could possibly use Cosmosm and would definitely need some other features on it to allow governance approval. They don't want permissionless network. They're not going to be a permissionless network. They want to have some targeted Cosmosm contracts. And so that idea was floated out, actually not from me, but from other people in the community. I said, the idea seems cool. I'm happy to work on that. I'm happy to have these features set into it. It allows us to expand and improve our product, and provide something of value, a very targeted value. The same way the work is for Terra, provided them exactly what they needed for their launch, allowing to integrate with their custom swap module and some other features as well, and staking module, those custom integrations. But those also improve the product. So I said, great, I'm happy to do work that improves our product and provides a clear utility for another chain. So I think tying those two together was a key. We're not just give us money to do something. We're doing something that you want and also helps our roadmap. So that's great. This is the perfect work for these contracts. So that was basically how I ended up looking. We're looking for money, and somehow it was suggested. I said the hub will never take smart contracts. Everyone said they'll never take smart contracts, right? So I'm not even looking there. And Zaki and Gavin kind of reached out saying, actually, I think it's useful for a number of varieties to have small target smart contracts could allow the hub to do very interesting stuff. And we think it's actually a very useful case. For example, shared security, dynamic IBC are very clear use cases where you could use this to respond much faster than having to do a governance vote on the fork the hub just to allow some external chain. I think the possibility of doing some market making it, but not really, or token issuance. I'm not sure those are so cool, but I think these two are kind of core to the hub's thing, shared security, and much more powerful with Cosmosm contracts. They have to be government approved, but that's much faster than doing a whole chain upgrade. So that was where it came to that thing. I was so basically I want to thank a lot Zaki and Gavin, who basically led me through this process. I didn't know how to make a proposal, the hub. I said, great. So who's the hub? Where do you talk to them? Let's have a meeting. Let's have a Skype to the hub. No, there's no Zoom with the hub. Even in quarantine, this is virtual. So so Gavin had this write-ups from the governance working group, which I found were very useful. So he pointed me to them. I read through them. We set stuff up, made a post in the forum, chatted with people there, posted to some of the Telegram groups, I then had 2 speaking opportunities. One of them I was, I think, Ready Layer 1 already, invited that one, and another one that we did, I don't even remember what it was, some other talk, and I think Althea was also there looking at doing hub investment at that time for Peggy. So we had some presentations, open questions, explain the idea more in depth that people are interested in. And that was really a way of getting exposure, of getting people to understand the idea, to talk about the idea, discuss the idea, got response in the forum, could answer these questions. And before it ever came to a proposal, there's already built out support for it and already answered a lot of questions, adjusted my proposal and made a number of changes to the proposal based on concerns people had raised. So when it came to proposing it, it was pretty simple to go through that route. It was just basically a formality, I would say. You do it and you see they vote, but you've kind of gotten the support already of the community before you even brought your proposal, right? So I didn't know it was going to pass. I was actually very surprised how well it passed. I expected it probably pass and I'd probably have 70-something% approval, and be happy with that. And let's hope we get quorum, right? And so I think got 70% votes and 99% approval, something. But yeah, it was very impressive actually. So thank you very much for figuring out how that works, Gavin. And one of the key points that came up actually during the discussions with people was, how is the money spent? How do you know you're doing your stuff? It's a very good question. So we modified the proposal before it became a proposal, the suggestion, and it was, we have a multi-sig. So the money does not go to me, not Confio. It went to a multi-sig account that was held by 3 people that were known in the community, well-respected C-level of 3 projects. And they would then release money to me on a 2 of 3 multi-sig. And so I got 1 payment up front to start it, 1 payment upon finishing code, another payment upon a successful testnet demoing it, which is actually in progress. Well, that last piece is still a bit, is done, but anyway, it's kind of done. Yeah, well, I'll talk about it later.
Is that Gaiaflex that I broke? Is that Gaiaflex?
Yeah, I mean, but like we did the work, but no one's on it. So anyway, I'll follow up that. That's like an issue. I mean, technically we finished everything except like the getting people to vote and then try it out was not working. But so that was actually interesting. So it was very cool to do it. And I think we're very happy to have this 3 steps. So I haven't actually gotten the last funds because we have not officially decided we've done that properly, I guess. So we haven't been injected either. So that's cool. It's a little funny. I spent a few hours playing with CLI tools and ledgers again and again to make sure I got the process right before I can make these multi-sig address, working with people. We have a Telegram group to me hand coding CLI, make sure I get the proper thing to unsigned transaction, post a Telegram group. They download it, have to sign it, send me with the commands we're sharing back and forth, send me a signed transaction. I download those 2, put together and upload it on the hub. It worked. I've done it twice now. It was definitely a nerve-rattling experience the first time I did it, hoping that that money I earned would actually get to my account. So I tried it on testnet before. I mean, I did, but yeah, it's still it's still interesting. So I think the idea is very, very good. I think the UX for it needs to improve a lot. And in fact, we have a task for Cosm.js. So we're working on Stargate support and working on better multi-sig support in Cosm.js. That's one of the things we're working on now. We're targeting actually Cosm Wasm contracts rather than the native multi-sig because it's on-chain aggregation. It's easier to do. We target the groups module, the same plan, which is on-chain aggregation for the groups module, which is in progress for the SDK, native thing, the same flow. And at some point, the off-chain aggregation is cool, but needs a way of passing signatures from client to client, which you don't have. There's no good solution for that. So when that exists and we have a good solution for that, we're happy to add that support as well. So this whole thing, off-chain or on-chain aggregation, both work well. So yeah, that was the payout. That's how it worked for me. The payouts worked. They're a little technically hard to do, but they worked. So they're possible. I think the idea is very, very good. And I propose if people do this either on app post Stargate, we can even have, use another chain like tardigrade chain, move your stuff over. There are other Cosmos chains too. We have some Cosmos contract. You can move it over, set your multi-sig on there, move the atoms there. They can release it to you and you move them back to the hub, right? So we could, with IBC, we can add this kind of, your payment payout can go somewhere that can be sent to another chain and that controlled there. So that's one way of releasing it with nicer UIs. So I'll go my follow-up of like later, but I think that was the whole process of getting funded and getting the money.
Yeah, so that's a step up from when I was funded. Our proposal was the first one that passed in January of 2020, and that was just basically like, trust me, here, send the atoms to this address, and I'll do the work. And that's so essentially, if you don't have an existing reputation, it's kind of hard to. It might be hard to convince the networks that it's okay to just send those and hope that they'll deliver. There's kind of two ways that funding happens right now with Cosmos Hub, and that's with the ICF, with like a grant process, and that's very like behind closed doors, so it's completely the opposite from on-chain funding, which is you're very exposed. It means one of the challenges that I had was addressing any of the criticisms, and to know which criticisms were really for me to address or what was for the broader community to be addressing. Like some people were like, we're paying too much money for this. Well, it's not really up to me to say. It's either you think you are or you aren't, and as a community you should kind of decide. And yeah. So, and then some people say, how come you're not responding to the criticism? Because it's not really for me to respond. So there's only one me, and there are lots of people, and those voices kind of amplify, and I don't scale with all of that. So I have to focus on doing work, and I want to respond to everything, but I can't respond to everything. So that kind of pressure is really challenging. And then also there's just the how do payouts work, and how do we get quality assurance? All of these things are challenges that people kind of avoid just simply by going through the ICF. But ICF funding won't last forever. Ostensibly, I mean, maybe it will last a long time, but like ideally, it would be nice to have things move more and more to on-chain funding, I think, for many reasons. And there are two kinds. Like there's the kind that, at least in my mind, there's the kind that it's directly for improvements on and off chain for the hub. But then there's also like seed funding. There's the potential to fund ecosystem projects in exchange for tokens, and that's what Sergey was looking to do, right, with Cyber.
Yeah.
Which actually segues really well.
Yeah. So, what's the question?
I don't know. Maybe just like chat a little bit about because you wanted to use. So with Cyber, the Cyber team wanted to use funding from the community pool for something that's like kind of totally outside of what it had been used for in the past.
Sure. So like to get there, I guess that not everybody knows the story who's going to listen to this. I'm not going to go into the detail, the unnecessary detail, but I think everybody who is going to listen to that needs to understand why we decided to do that. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I think that people who are going to attempt to do this should understand why they're doing this, not just because the possibility is there. Because I predict that in like 2 years' time, maybe less, as soon as we'll have like full on-chain governance, like blowing out and going and so on and so forth, there will be just projects coming in and asking for money all the time. And there will be all the rubbish that's going in and saying, please give me money, please give me money. So I think that people that are attempting this should understand the first, not just the possibility to ask, but why they're asking. And the reason that our team and Cyber's team, when I say our team here, attempted to do this is you have to understand like not what we do, but where we come from in blockchain space. And as unrelated as that sounds, it is. Let's bear with me here for a second. So the team behind Cyber has been in blockchain space since, like, some of us have been here since about 2010, 11, since the very beginning. And we've launched different projects. And one of them was actually called Cyber Fund, which had a project called Satoshi Fund. And that was many years ago. And we were one of the first blockchain funds with altcoins that launched many years ago, when it wasn't even like a thing at all, and it was crazy, and our idea was like, we were fascinated by blockchain. Like everything we did was, and everything we still do, is kind of, can be seen for the naked eye as kind of like the anti-behavior, as like the the bad guys' behavior. Like, okay, so you guys are misbehaving, you guys don't want to listen to one, you guys want to do everything the opposite way. Well, in a sense, maybe, but that's because, like, sorry for my French, we have balls. But the other side of that, right, is that's because we really believe in what we do, and we're really passionate about the technology, and we really think that it can bring a big change, not just for, and let's not talk about the good and bad of Bitcoin or whatever, but not just in terms of like monetary flows and monetary distributions or whatever, right? But in terms of how technology is working and how the systems, the governmental systems work, or how they don't work and should be changed, whatever, right? So long story short, and cyber, and again, okay, now coming the second step here is cyber, and cyber is a project which is kind of like has this badass attitude, and we're like, okay, guys, so we're not gonna do it your way, we're gonna do it our way, because we're not because we like the bad Russian guys, right? Maybe that's part of it, but this is just because really this is what the project is about, and we want to keep it that way, and again, that's what we believe in. And like if you go on our GitHub, which is a mess here, but it's a artistic mess, you can like find documents which other projects will never like release. Like, and in our previous projects with Golos, for example, which we launched in 2016, and it was like the first Russian-based ICO. Doesn't matter whatever happened to that, but that's a different story. It's a community live project right now. It's still live. But like when we were like at the middle of it, we were like releasing our accountancy into the public. We were like completely 100% public about everything we can do and everything we can be. And again, with cyber, we didn't want to go to the ICF. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we did write to the ICF, but we did say in the letter that, okay, we want the funding, but we don't want the KYC. So we're kind of like straight away like trying to put our own rules. And again, okay, obviously nobody's gonna do that. You come in like opening the door with your foot first and then saying hello. And like the reason we didn't want to do this was because we wanted to avoid the not just the hassle that Ethan is talking about, and now the slow process that Ethan is mentioning. But the idea is really to prove, not to avoid, sorry, this is wrong, my English here is playing a bit, sorry, bear with me, is to prove that blockchain can work in a way it was meant to work. And for us, and again, obviously this is a subjective matter, but for us, it was a matter to say, okay, we believe in wisdom of the crowd, and we think that the crowd can gather together regardless of jurisdictions, regardless of the foundations that are legal foundations that are backing it, say, okay, there is an opportunity. It's a bit weird, right? I mean, nobody's really ever done this before, because what Ethan has done is a little bit different. I think it's a little bit different. Sorry, Ethan, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. But and actually now, if everybody follows DeFi, and I think everybody's obviously following DeFi, there was like this case a week ago where I think it was Boosted or Haka, I can't remember, so many of them coming out, said that let's invest into another protocol, and everybody was like, so far, all the Ether influencers were like, oh my God, and protocol is buying a protocol. This is for the first time ever. Well, it's not for the first time ever, because behind the scenes, I think projects like what we did with, like what Ethan did, right? Projects are already paving that way, and trying to do that. And basically now, again, long story short, coming to the actual story, what we did with Proposal 26 was the wrongs and the good things. The good thing is we kind of like stood our ground. We said, okay, we're not going to ask for a lot of money. We're going to ask for like 10K in atoms. This is enough to test the ground, enough for us to keep going for a few, like for half a year or whatever with work, whatever. And then as soon as IBC is ready, we will send, you can kind of like do the seed investment, the hub will do the seed investment, and we will send the tokens to the hub. So what people have to understand here is, first of all, not just the hub fund in Cyber, but Cyber potentially was supposed to send the tokens to the hub. And again, it kind of like sounds obvious, but when you start thinking about it, that means that those tokens that Cyber would have sent to the hub would have been in the possession of one single person. It means that the hub would have to make one single organism or whatever in order to be able to spend them, which is actually really difficult when you come to think about it. And this is why this is another reason why we wanted to go with a small sum. And this were the good things, right? The bad things was we didn't like follow the protocol that was in place, the unofficial protocol, which is, like coming with a proposal to the community, talking to the community prior to the proposal, trying to convince people on your side, trying to do the political game, the election game kind of thing. Hey, I'm Joe whatever, and I'm Trump whatever, right? And here's the political game, and vote for me, don't vote for me, whatever. And I'm not saying that projects should not do it. I'm not saying projects should do it. I'm still skeptical to whether there should be a correct way within on-chain governance to go about proposal. I still think that we should have done it. And I still think that anybody who's going to attempt to do this should do that. Not because you have to, because there is an unwritten protocol that says this is the best way to do that, but because you need to bring your idea as much as possible to the community. You need to spread that idea. You need to really, not to convince people, but to make them understand why you're asking them for money. I mean, after all, you're going to the wisdom of the crowd, right? So you're not trying to convince one person. You're trying to convince whatever, 10,000, 20,000. I'm not sure how many atom holders were at that point, existing at that point. And it's not just the validators, obviously, because like as seen from the voting of a lot of proposals, you have sometimes more accounts vote than validators differently known. Yes, and that just proves that there are more participants that are interested in that. And that means if you come in forward with a proposal ahead of the time, and you're doing the IMAs, we did like the IMA with Adriana, which thanks to her, and like you can do a lot of things. I think. I mean, you can go to like not just do IMAs, do speakings, come on to like shows like this, and talk about a project if you have a project, and again try to convince people why they should give you the money that you're asking for them. And this is kind of the story, I think, in short. And yeah.
And Serge, there's one thing that I want to kind of add there is that I think it's more than just a political, like more than a political game of convincing people. It's having a dialogue about what it is that you intend to do, so that there's the opportunity to get feedback. One of the things that I really like about what Ethan had said about the vote just being kind of a formality is that if you have a close enough relationship and you're able to like make the revisions that like if you get feedback and you think, yeah, like this is valuable feedback, like I'm going to change that before I launch it. The problem that I see is that once you launch it on chain, that's it. There's no revising it. And I kind of almost wish there was instead of like right now the voting options are yes, no, veto, abstain. I wish there was the one that was like make corrections and come back. Because like, I'm not like Figment, we said, we voted no on Prop 26, but like we were definitely ambivalent about it. And I personally was very ambivalent about it, and I don't want to say no and send a message to say like don't submit another proposal. I just want to say like, can we talk about this first? It was kind of a surprise when it showed up on the chain, and I just want to like, it just didn't feel like we were able to prepare ourselves well enough to be able to make an informed decision.
Sure. And let me just retort, like just before I let everybody else jump in. Sorry, let me just retort because I might have sounded kind of like, sorry, I just was telling Josh that the reason I don't have a camera is because I really had some bad virus and I look like the elephant man, and I might sound like one as well. So this is the reason I don't have the camera on. So I might come with my intonations of the voice somehow not like how I intend to. So first of all, let me say that by no means like this is an anti kind of comeback. Hey, I'm gonna get my comeback. I agree that discussion and doing revisions was the mistake that we did. I just think that there shouldn't be like like a white and black kind of written protocol which people should follow. This is what I'm saying, and this is actually coming to what Sunny has said like a few minutes ago. Well, not a few minutes ago, but at the beginning, with complicated governance where you have a proposal dependent on a proposal, dependent on a parameter change. And I think if we have that, then proposals technically will have go and correct that proposal, because technically you're offering something on chain and the chain is saying back to you, okay, we like that, but we don't like this, and that. We don't like those parameters. And we think if we make another proposal, then if you change that, we see that, and they will change. Of course, this is the future and kind of like the complicated, distant future, but this is what I'm kind of getting at. But I totally agree with you once again in terms of go and do revisions. I think that's correct.
Go ahead.
I was just literally going to say, I'm kind of curious what Sunny's thinking.
Yes, I agree with the idea of revisions, but I'll just say also, Sika voted no on proposal 26, and I think I was one of the earlier ones to vote no. And I'll say this very publicly right now. I think I made the wrong decision there. I think that Dave and I, when we made that decision, we basically came with the approach that Cosmos Hub, community proposal funding should be used for public goods development rather than investments into certain projects. And I think since that proposal happened, I don't know what has it been, 6 months or something. I think we've actually not even 6 months, but I think we've
at the end of May, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think we've both flipped our view on this, where we think that the Cosmos Hub really is a DAO, and the DAO, if we make this, we should be we should make a proposal up front, not on any specific investment, but I think we should make a proposal saying is investment something the Cosmos Hub wants to do? And if that passes, and I would probably vote yes on that today, even though I would have voted no on that 6 months ago, because I think that's something that's supposed to do. And I think one of the things that I think this is good because it's a good way of getting funding for projects within the community. But I think one of the things that actually flipped my realization was Brian from Kava. So not shitting on Kava here. I'm an advisor to Kava. I love Kava, but he kind of. I remember at one point on Telegram he said that I don't really, paraphrasing here. He basically said I don't care about the Cosmos Hub because we don't really have any atoms. And I'm like, oh, that's true, and that kind of sucks. I think that the idea of the Cosmos Hub investing in projects in the Cosmos ecosystem helps bring this joint incentives between projects within the Cosmos ecosystem with the Cosmos Hub. And so I think that's sort of one of the main reasons I think that for me that was the flipping point where I said, actually, you know what, I want the Cosmos Hub to make more investments.
So yeah, very good points. I think there are two issues besides the getting more publicity on it. There are two things with Serge. One is that technically it was very ahead of the time. I mean, I was saying multi-sig was advanced. You offering tokens that we somehow sent over IBC to the community fund address or some holder of the community fund address in the future is rather new terrain. It wasn't possible technically. It will be possible technically, but that's, I think, very ambitious of you guys. I think it's very impressive. But I think the tech wasn't quite ready for what you were offering. It would have been, in some months, it should be very much easier to do what you're suggesting. But the other question is very clear. So I would say, what does the hub want? What should the hub invest in? Should it invest in community public good stuff? Public good for the hub? Product features for the hub? Does Peggy make sense for the hub? Is the Peggy going to run it, or is it something else? Are we investing in people and they send their tokens back and we give atoms for them and they give their tokens to us? If they give it to us, to who? Do they give it to the community pool back? Or do you make a sub DAO inside of it of some large atom holders that give their personal atoms to another thing, invest in it, instead of the whole hub itself investing in it, right? And if it goes in community pool, now we have random tokens in community pool, what do you do this later? And what those reinvested in, and why do we have these? And there's lots of questions. So
a lot of questions that are hard to ask on chain, right?
Totally. And the problem is these are very, very profound questions. And I think they cannot happen, just Devin suddenly talking about something, Figure talking about something else. These are really, really important questions to vision the hub. And there's no real space to have those conversations. There's kind of as a governance working group, but there's no real space. And so tying to my proposal, the worst part of it is a follow-up, honestly. So there is no real owner. So not just have the owner you present to, which we kind of figured out the way of doing that because it was relatively understood what we were doing, but there's no owner to respond to. So I had this multi-sig which votes yes or no, I did the work or I didn't do the work, right? So I get approval, it's controlled, it's a thumbs up. They're all heads of other projects, they're super busy people. So they review my code, takes a few days, they review stuff, they say I did it, okay, they're honest, but they're not really owning it, right? So they're an approval, it's a judge basically. It's good, but there's no owner. So what's next? For example, we delivered a Gaia Flex testnet in September, and we had it up there, and we tried to get people doing it, and we followed everything it said. We did an airdrop exactly what I wrote in the thing, which means you can. I spent a while doing it, so you can use your Gaia CLI to prod offline sign it and actually claim with the same address you have on Cosmos. You can claim tokens on our thing. We implemented this properly, and I think I did it, and 2 other people did it. I think. And everyone else that was, my things are in Cosmos Station thing. How did I do that? I'm like, I don't know. I assume that people actually have, even if you have a Ledger app and a multisig on the thing, you could do it somehow using offline Gaia CLI. So then I'm like, okay, I don't know. And then, okay, how do I promote this stuff? I send it out there and everyone's busy. Stargate's coming on, 500 Solana's doing something, Polkadot's something. Everyone's busy in 500 networks at that time. September, October. I'm like, I put it out there and we push it again and again. And we finally do a vote, and I think one person voted besides us, and I think Gavin got on there at one point. So how do you? No one owns it really in a way, right? So there was no follow up, and how do I do afterwards? So this is ready, and we've run it and we've proven this it works, and it's technically done. And what's the follow up? And the desire is a little different than now. And look at IBC, it's fine, and we'll have IBC enabled. We are working on IBC enabled Cosmosm. And IBC enabled Cosmosm with the governance proposals, and this will be importable by the Cosmos Hub. And so when it comes, January, February, if you want to add it, you will have it ready. It's ready, technically ready. But so the goods are delivered in a way, but there's no follow up clearly. And I personally have no need to put on the hub, right? Like I think it's cool, but what's my incentive? I don't own atoms. I mean, I do own some, but like the marginal value increasing atoms 10% is not worth my time. Right? There are other people that have 1 million in atoms that marginal increasing atom value 10% is huge for them, right? And the hub itself is 10% is huge. So for doing something that can do a marginal improvement in the hub is worth my time to do it. I'm happy to do stuff, but it's not really the third time doing the whole fund organization about it just for that part. It's not. So who owns it? Who's invested? Where's this coming from? What's the vision? It needs to become an entity in a way, not a formal legal entity, but how do you talk to hub, right? It's a bit too decentralized in a way. It's good that everyone's decentralized in voting and knows what you see, but on the other hand, how do you communicate and who follows up with that?
So I want to be mindful of time here because these are great points. But I also want to hear from Sunny because I know. So we've all applied. We've all had a hub proposal. Now you're considering one right now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not considering one. It's more of Sika. Dave and I are both now full time on Sika, which is we weren't in the past, and we actually started hiring people. And one of the things that we've been doing is just general SDK development, features that I've had on my mental back burner forever. And it's now we actually have hired some people that we can actually start working on this stuff. And my question is what's the best way for us to do these features? And so what I'm thinking is there's this person in the Cosmos community, he's in a bunch of Telegram groups. His name is Dark Ghosty. I don't know who he actually is, but he's very also active in the Wi-Fi community on Ethereum. And he was I was talking to him about how within Wi-Fi governance is so active, and there's constantly new proposals being made every multiple a week, and it just feels way more active. And so how we can how to get that into Cosmos, and so I'd like to see more. And I don't know, I guess this is a question do we want to see more and more governance proposals at a much faster rate, or is the expectation that people don't want to be voting that often? Oh, Gary.
I want to see more, and
Yeah.
like I just want to say we're working on a stealth project right now for off-chain governance proposals, basically to be able to allow people to rapidly iterate without having like, because when you do a poll or whatever, it's like, yeah, like 90% of people have maybe said yes, but like it doesn't take into account for staked atom weight.
Yeah.
So like some whale comes in and just like flips it. So like you can actually see that, like it's nice to be able to see off-chain with your voting weight.
By the way, there is a I haven't started it like to a fuller extent, but I know that Aragon has already implemented optimistic voting with the snapshot, and that's basically off-chain voting, which uses IPFS, if I'm not mistaken, as like relay receipts. And I'm not going to go into it because I'm still like really like fresh on it myself, so I'm afraid to say something wrong. But obviously, with Aragon coming via Ethermid to Cosmos, maybe there would be another possibility. And I'm not saying like maybe Gavin, you should check it out as well. Maybe you can take something from there from what you guys are doing. So like optimistic voting, that's what it's called. But theirs is called Snapshot, I think, or something. Okay, cool.
So Snapshot was this tool that was developed by Balancer, and then now it's basically used by almost all the DeFi projects on Ethereum. And I was discussing with Dirk Ghosty, and one of the cool things that Snapshot does is it is off-chain voting. So it looks, you sign it with your Ethereum address, so you do like a signed message and you send it to like the Snapshot server, and it like does this. I guess it's similar to what you're building, Gavin, but and this is really useful for Ethereum because gas prices on Ethereum are so high that on-chain voting is so infeasible. But on the Cosmos Hub, I'm not sure that like that is the main hurdle. Like, gas prices on voting on the Cosmos Hub is so cheap that I don't think that's the hurdle that's stopping people from voting, or even and I think the problem isn't that getting people to vote. I think it's like there's not that many proposals even in the first place, right? Like the cyber proposal from like May was proposal 26. We're currently only on proposal like there's only been 2 proposals that have actually made it to the voting period since then. So that's like a rate of almost like one proposal a quarter, which is like
there's no cadence. Like no one, it's so infrequent that who's looking at it, right?
Yeah. And so
shame on you people.
I mean, so for Sika, what I want to do,
there'll be a whole lot soon at Stargate. Don't worry, there'll be a dozen, I'm sure.
I mean, for Sika, what we want to do is start making proposals for like much more minor features, like that. Then, like Cosmosm was this like large project that needs like multi-month project. What we want to be able to do is say like for example, Sika, we just finished implementing a feature called Change Pub Key, which allows an account to change their pub key. It's like this is like pretty minor feature. It took about a week of work, but it's like, would it be reasonable to make a governance proposal to just get funding for like that one feature? And if so, what is the process for this? Because one, we need to get that feature even approved by the hub. Like, hey, is this a feature the hub wants? And then 2, it's like, okay, we want, do we go get funding for it? And like, Sika's approach is we really want to focus. We don't want to like get like we're gonna do SDK development for a year, because that's like this like long-term commitment. Our focus is like we have certain features that we want to create, and so how do we get funding for those specific features?
So I want to say something. I think it's a very good question. It's infeasible to have a hub vote on a 1-week feature. The amount of attention needed, to get this going for 5 dev days is not worth it. The overhead is too high. And it was, like a 3-month project, basically, what we applied for, right? Not our whole funding. It was just like about half our dev work for 3-4 months. What I think that was, it's a reasonable amount for 1 or 2 months of dev work. You could apply for it, but for a week, it doesn't make sense. So one thing I was discussing too before was some other people was like subcommittees. And it's something we're trying to build for tardigrade as well in Cosmosm, and you could deploy in contracts. Eventually in the hub, you could also native module or over IBC. But basically, the hub can say, hey, we want to dedicate 50,000 atoms for the next half or next quarter for supporting development. And we want this 5-person committee to be the grant committee for it. They can be anonymous people too, the signatures. And the committee pool put these 50K atoms in this thing. and they will say, okay, we trust you guys to disperse, and then they will publicly vote to disperse these atoms, and you have 5 people you can communicate to, and they have a public channel on me, Telegram to discuss this stuff, or Discord channel, and people even apply for microgrants on it. And it's a much more lightweight community, and maybe only 10,000 a quarter. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, something.
I think that would make a lot of sense too. Like having, some sort of subcommittee that I can like create proposals for directly for that. Kind of stuff.
I believe Matthew from Simply VC is working on this. So that's
okay.
That we should include in future conversations about this.
I talked with him about this, I think, too, a while ago.
Yeah.
Good idea.
You know what the timeline for this is?
Not off the top of my head, but I think he'd like to use Starport to do this. So I'm not. It all depends on the size, the scope of the work that he's going to do. So, but I can get you in contact with him right away.
Honestly, I think all this governance iteration should be done on another change, not the hub first. So you can play with it, another change, experiment with it, and when you decide what's wanted, you can add that in the hub as a native module. But I think it's much, much faster if, especially smaller amounts, throw it over IBC to another chain, do another chain smaller that can either implement in Go or Cosmos or anything else, but like can try, iterate, change the modules, and the hub, when you come to the hub, you want to have it right before you put in the hub. And so in the territory, I think it's much easier to sketch out other chains and then put in the hub when you're solid how it works.
Yeah, right now the hub leads a lot of development, but actually it should probably be the most stable and like reliable thing.
Wait, so Ethan, so like we would still need a proposal for the features on their own, right?
I would say that you would have one proposal say we will fund 50,000 atoms for H1 2021 to this 5-person committee, and then you have a proposal to that committee for your feature. But that committee is 5 people. The voting period might be 3 weeks, 3 days, and you can get them approval from that for 1,000 atoms pretty easily, or denial on it. And it's the much.
But that's what funding. What about the feature itself? Like, so for example, the next one we wanted to do was probably going to be proportional slashing, and the problem is I don't know how long this is going to take, but if I was to estimate, it would be like about a month. And so it's like, is that something that like, so put aside the question of funding, we first need to even get that feature like approved by governance that, hey, does the hub want this feature? And so does it make sense to tack on a funding request with it? Or should we or would it be like, okay, we first make the proposal to the hub, whether to we should do this at all, and then we make a request to the funding sub-DAO to get funding for it?
I mean, I think the proposal, if you have these larger things, it might not need on the hub itself. I think it should not just be you deciding to do it. I think it should be, or SDK core team. I think it should be like offline governance, like Gavin was talking about. To get basically, if you get general community buy-in, they like the idea, you don't need an on-chain vote for it, right? You just need that general thing to, hey, a lot of atom stakes, it's a cool idea. Informally, that should be enough. And then you talk to the founding people, what are the conditions for it, what is it doing on it, right? So I think this could be applied together. So the funding the token release is controlled by some multi-stake, much faster one. But of course, they can't decide what the vision is. The vision can be discussed off-chain. I think it's a much easier way of doing it than trying to have a big vote on every little piece.
I agree. And what?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to change the subject to just close out, but if anyone else has any other things to say, go for it.
Personally, I think slashing dangerous. But yeah, I would not fund changes to the staking module until it's being refactored, because I've seen that code, and it's been tested, but I would not touch it until it's been refactored.
Just as a closing thought here, one of the things that's on my mind is I'd like to see more large funding happen, because big numbers, like, first of all, I want to see big improvements and I want to see big things happen for the hub. And then the secondary effect is that I think it'll attract a lot of attention. I think that if we're willing to pay a lot, it'll attract top talent. And even though the pool isn't necessarily very large, it could be larger. We could change parameters so that we have more rewards, like funding the pool, and we could be attracting top talent. And there are other networks that are doing this. They're like Kusama's well known for having a lot of governance activity and a lot of funding, and we could do this as well. And then we can also, when we think about Polkadot's going to do this like initial parachain offering where The bidding is covered by various actors on the network, I guess, by validators or other or stakers. But we could be seeding other chains, and I'd love to see Cyber come back, and I'd like to see other projects seed funding. So I think we need to talk about what that looks like, and so that we feel people can projects can feel a little more confident participating in that process. No, we don't. We don't
Any other
large bald people only applying.
Yeah, I guess
Oh,
I
good.
could mention something. I really want to see more signaling proposals. Like, it's hard to get consensus on Telegram, hard to get consensus on forums. I don't think people are using the proposal as more of a signaling, like Sunny, suggested, should the hub invest, or even before you bring on a proposal, maybe do something where it's like, is this something where the hub would be interested in, and then maybe that could be a good way to kind of formulate the details and iterate in the future. So yeah, I'd love to see more Cosmos Hub surveys on different topics, and try to figure out what this hub likes, what it doesn't like, and then I think that would kind of give a better idea on proposals like that. We have 2.3 million sitting in the community pool. We haven't had a spend proposal since May. I know, it's not a ton of money, but it's a significant sum. And I think signaling proposals would be a good step in that direction.
Guys, I really want to thank you all for joining and chatting. There's a lot more, obviously, to talk about. So looking forward to future convos.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you all for joining. And until
Thanks, everyone.
next week.
Bye.
Cool. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.